Let's Talk Native is produced at the LTN Studios on the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation. We break all the rules for Native media by peeling back the layers of assimilation and indoctrination. No prayers, no buffalo speeches, and no spirituality shows. While this podcast does not provide a path to spiritual enlightenment, we do take a tough look at history, oppression, and our survival. But the real goal here is to bring our people together by breaking down what separates us. So, welcome to Let's Talk Native with John Kane.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Native. I'm John Kane. I am the host, and we are right now going to present our second in a series of conversations with Tekarontake, or otherwise known as Paul Delaronde, my longtime friend and somebody who's been a part of organizing, communities, Native communities, the men, the warriors, for many years. We went through kind of a bit of the origin story, I guess, in the first episode. But what I want to do now is delve into where this brought us in some of frankly some of the major conflicts like the Tekarontake / Oka crisis, where it's brought us in terms of some of the bigger tax battles that we've had with whether it's New York State or the United States or Quebec or Canada, however you want to break it up. How it relates to land reclamation and bring it on forward to kind of where we're at now. So again, let me introduce Tekarontake to Let's Talk Native. Again, Dega, thanks for joining me.
Anytime.
Well, let's get kind of right back into it. When we ended, we were talking about some of the organizational things that you guys put in place, especially in Kahnawake, the funding mechanisms, the fact that, frankly, the Warrior Society had become, somewhat known in as far as advancing, this new way of developing economy on our territory, which was to utilize the regulatory advantages that we were willing to fight for, like tax advantages. And so tobacco came to mind. It would also extend into fuel, where we were buying wholesale tobacco, wholesale fuel, and selling it on our territories without, especially on the U.S. side, without any New York State and without some of the federal taxes associated with this, with some of these products. So we know that the Warrior Society became known for some of this economic development, and that obviously furthered some of the ability to organize. Why don't you pick it up from there and kind of give a sense for where things went when things were running as smoothly as possible. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, first off, people need to remember is that none of us were businessmen. We didn't have any experience being business people or anything. We come from a people who basically were, trappers and loggers and guides and then iron workers, and we took on all kinds of professions and that. But one of the things we were not was businessmen, and probably the first businessmen were the fur trading. But other than that, fur trading was long and over, and so. When we went to school, nobody taught you about business or anything like that, and so we had to learn as we went along. And at the beginning, we really shortchanged ourselves, but as we got into it more and more, we became rather good at it. And and so all the enterprises started to grow, and so we didn't just do cigarettes; we started financing. Butcher shops, flower shops, construction companies, landscaping companies, and we were doing everything we could to have our people be able to stand on their own 2 feet. And we also would help to support the schools, and with everything from computers to school buses, or even school buildings. Because now, like other communities came to us for help, and we were more than happy to help anybody who came and needed that help. And just had to tell us what they really wanted. And that's what we supported them. We didn't tell them how to do anything. We just told them, we said, yeah, here, this is what you say you need. All right, we give it to you. And we never asked for anything in return. I mean, we helped build bingo halls even some of the outside of the Shuni, and we helped farmers with hay and grain and that when the drought was on across Western Canada, and then we supported summer camps for single mothers and their children, and all kinds of. I mean, the list goes on and on, but this is the kind of things we were doing to try to let our people know that we're all in Guahumba. We're all in the same canoe, and we all need to help. If somebody might have a broken arm, he can't paddle. Well, we'll help. We'll take up the slack for him. And that was always the way we did it. And to us, there was no borders. There's no such thing as, oh, this is just for Mohawks, or this is just for Oneidas, or this is just for Chippewas, or this is just for Anishinaabe. No. Turtle Island is our mother, and all of us, we're one people. We're all Oklahoma. That was always our attitude. And we were, even amongst our own, we were always trying to educate and bring that awareness, the dish with one spoon concept. And that's what we did. And so, we started to venture off into other things. We started getting into the garment industry, and we started manufacturing jeans and with our own logos on them, and we supported other people. Not that we wanted to be in the business, but we knew somebody within Indian country would want to be able to do this. And a lot of times when something's going on, and we see it every day, as in Guahumba, we think, oh, white man can do it, but we can. But if they see one in Guahumba do it, then all of a sudden they say, well, if he can do it, so can I. And that's how businesses were growing, And we supported all these things. And and then there was a Grand Council called, and there was different feelings. Some people said, oh, cigarettes is not our way, and now, they start saying, because our people were living better now. A lot of our people bought Cadillacs, and we were criticized because we had Cadillacs, and but we were buying old Cadillacs, 10-year-old, 15-year-old Cadillacs, and yet the guy who's criticizing us is driving a brand new Volvo, which was, you can buy 4 Cadillacs with what he paid for that Volvo, but it was the name Cadillac or Lincoln. And that's what was eating people away. That's what they were focused on. And so, when it came to, helping people on their land issues, I mean, we supported Ganyang at that. And not only with money, but with manpower and everything. And to help Ganyoga become a success. And here Ganyoga is almost 50 years. And nobody else can say that they got land back, and we didn't have to make a land claim. We didn't have to beg for our land. We just went out and repossessed part of our homelands. And we were all involved in those things. And, and we've been in all over Indian country. Whenever we were asked, like when Onondagas wanted to have an eviction, they sent word to us, and we went down there, and we stood there not to carry out their eviction, but to make sure that the outside authorities didn't interfere in their right to decide what was going to go on in their communities. Even though people on that council criticized us, we still went because that was the calling. It was the people's call. And that's what we supported. We went there when they called us to stop the expansion of Highway 81. And when people called us because of the tax fight, and in 96, 97, we were there. We stood with them. We were at their fires. We were at their roadblocks. We shared our experiences and our knowledge. And, and people were so happy. We were out there. We did the public relations. We organized a dialogue team and everything to talk on radio, televisions, and newspapers, and it's nonstop. It's nonstop job. And the thing is that your job as a Ruskaragesta is not only for your community; it is for all your people, all of Guahumba. That's what our job is: to help, to protect, and to support in the best way we know how, and however we're able to do this. This is what it's about. We have never been the aggressors. We've never been the aggressors to go and say, you know, to just go outright and go attack people. And even though there's been so many rumors and things said about us, but I could say it's not true.
But clearly, the Warrior Society, the men stood their ground when they were faced with a force coming onto the territories, and I think that's one of the things that probably sealed some of the reputation of the Warrior Society was standing up to New York State Police, for instance, in Akwesasne, and some of the stance that we're taking. And much of it was on the U.S. side, but not exclusively there. The standoffs were taking place in many territories and beyond Mohawk territories.
That's right.
So I think the ability and the willingness for you guys to stand up. It didn't just embolden our people, but it also sent a message to New York State. I mean, part of the reason that Ganyonge was successful was because they knew who they were dealing with. Part of the reason that we were able to push back on the state on taxes and some of these other things is that there was already a bit of a history that was developing with the willingness for the warrior societies to stand up, but also that it wasn't just this rogue bunch of, this wasn't, a gang. This was, it was an organization that had a commitment to peace, but also willing to fight for it.
That's right. You see, John, let me tell you, as a Longhouse person, growing up in the Longhouse my whole life, and I at a very early age, I always went to the meetings. I was like a 12-year-old kid, sitting in the meetings, listening to the old timers, and I've been to local councils, national councils, grand councils, and so on. And I always listened to them talking about the issues that were facing our people. And all the time I would hear, well, every Longhouse had a secretary, and they say to the secretary, well, you're going to have to write this letter to the Queen, write this to the Governor General, write this to the Prime Minister of Canada, write this to Washington, write this letter and send it to Albany. And, it just kept going on, so many letters. And finally, I asked my grandfather, I says, did we ever get a reply with all these letters that we sent? He just looks at me and shakes his head. He says, no. I said, then why do we send the letters? He says, it's just, the only reason we send the letters is just to let them know that we have not forgotten and that we are requesting that they carry out their obligation and to respect like the two row and things like this and that. But most of our letters probably just went in the trash can and that. And so when people talked of the Confederacy, they always talked about us that like maybe we belong only in a museum at Smithsonian or Albany Museum or Museum of Man in Ottawa. Like we were thing of a past, but we were still very much alive. And so when the Discouragette rekindled the fire, and we started taking responsibility and trying to carry out what we learned from the old ones, and then they tried to squash us, but we would not allow that. We fought back. And we always kept fighting back. We always kept standing firm. And whenever our people were in trouble, we went to support them. However, if the people asked us to lay our lives on the line, that's what we were prepared to do. And these are the things that we did do. And we stood out there on the front lines to make sure that our people were safe, that nobody was going to abuse our people, and that what our people wanted was what we were going to fight for. We didn't always have success, but we did the best we could. And all of a sudden, there was a propaganda being spread. And the sad part about it, the propaganda came from within our own house.
Right.
And that all of a sudden people started throwing at us that there's no such thing as warriors. There's no such thing as warriors. But yet everybody's got a lacrosse team or a hockey team that says Onondaga Warriors or Mohawk Warriors or, everybody's bragging about the warrior. And
some of them were being funded by some of the warrior societies.
Yeah, and and the thing is that we kept explaining to everybody, we are the Tekarontake. That's who we are, the Tekarontake. And that we are not, that, and we explained that's just a psychological tool in our arsenal. That's
Well,
all that was.
and to be
And
clear,
we
there
explained.
there were some people who were already be considered iconic Native leaders who were going so far as to say that the warriors were outlaws and that the Confederacy had
Yeah,
outlawed warrior societies, and they try to track it back to the Gondowida and Hiawatha and the burying, the symbolic burying of weapons, and they completely misrepresent it. And of course they ignore the fact that there were. Look, there was even an official proclamation in World War II where some of these Lorinisu had gone and made their own declaration against the Axis powers. So,
that's right.
so to justify our men fighting,
Yes,
against
that's
Germany,
right.
Japan, and Italy. So it's crazy and it's hypocritical. But you're right. Much of the negative stuff that was coming back against the Warrior Society was happening from people who, frankly, were probably a little put off by the fact that there was, that the very advice that they were preaching and promoting for many, many years was actually taking hold, and men and women were acting on it, and they almost seemed
Yes.
to be put
Well,
off by it.
John, John, the main reason that certain people did not want the Discaragete to exist, and that because the Discaragete, they reaffirmed that the people had a right to make decisions. And the Discaragete supported the decision of the people, and certain people who were in certain key positions were free to do whatever they wanted, make false claims about how much authority they have, and so on and so forth. But when they were called to task, and they didn't listen to the women, and they didn't listen to the warnings of that, the people gave it to the Discaragete, and the Discaragete issued the final warning. And when they wasn't adhered to, the Discaragete did what they were supposed to do. They removed those people. And this put a fear in so many people, because they said, holy, we better watch ourselves, because now the people have the power. They can make us. They can make us comply with our ways, can make us comply with our laws. And that's what scared them. And then the propaganda machine broke out and everything. And they had very good writers, and now the internet was just coming into existence, and and a lot of us, we didn't know how to use
Well, and they were
internet.
also trying to they were also using some levels of international diplomacy to discredit the. But then this major conflict erupts in Ganazadalge, and it had been brewing for a time, and regardless of how it starts, what the specific events were. One of the things that became obvious was that the entire world became familiar with with that unity flag that had now become synonymous with the warrior societies, and so now all of a sudden the entire world became aware that yes, there were men, native men, who were prepared to use their own traditions, their own culture, their own history to justify the resistance, that was being demonstrated. So, talk to me a little bit about the effects that not only that the warriors had on Oka, but that Oka had on the warrior society, the image, and that kind of thing.
Well, the thing is that how Oka happened. It didn't go in accordance with the process that we were accustomed to. And it was, certain people in the Ganazadalge who wanted to protect their forests and so on. And so people went and they showed support in that. But a lot of the people weren't familiar with our process. And because they didn't get their instructions before they went and got involved. They should have got their instructions on what it was that was expected. And so almost like people were just out there, and making claims of representation of this and representation of that. But even though it didn't go in accordance to what we were accustomed to, we still stood by our people.
Well,
It
but
wasn't
even before the major conflict, look, I remember being at the Onondaga Longhouse when representatives were coming down from Gunazadage asking for help. They were asking the Confederacy essentially for help because there was the effort to move in on the Pines didn't just happen one day. It had happened. It had been
no.
going on for months, as I recall, if not many months. So this was something that was building up for quite a period of time. So the reason that some people went was they were just answering the call from the community of some of the voices from Gunazadage to just show up there. And like you said, they showed up without a whole lot of directives, but they showed up because they believed they were answering a call, even though there was not a real organized effort to heed that call.
That's right. The people of Gunazadage, they were asking for help from the Confederacy, and but the Confederacy did not move on anything, and it's like out of sight, out of mind, kind of it was. But for many of us, we've seen so much of this happen already, and when our people got into a dispute, it wasn't long before you knew that the outside was going to send forces in to arrest people, charge people, imprison people or beat people up and that. And so we knew, even if the so-called Grand Council wasn't going to, do anything officially, and that we as a people, we still will defend, and so that's why when it came time and Gunazadage was getting attacked, then Ganawaga, we did what we had to do. And then people came from all over and did what they had to do. And then people in the other territories, they start doing different things to, let Canada know that people at Gunazadage were not alone. That, if anything really, really tragic happened, that all of Canada would have known.
Well, and even though there was a pretty good media blackout associated with the initial attack and then the long standoff that took place, what you're talking about is some of the actions that were taking place in territories that weren't necessarily in the news. So there were the first rail blockades were happening, highways that were blocked, power lines that were toppled. There were a lot of things that were happening that wasn't making the news, but Canada sure knew it was happening, and they knew that they had created a conflict now, and they were supporting this village of Oka in defending them, I guess, in the wake of all this, in such a way that Native people from all over the U.S. and Canada, and in a big way in Canada, were standing up and were taking action where they lived. Nobody had to flood to Gunazadage or even to Ganawage.
That's right.
People were taking action where they lived, and it was a powerful moment.
That's right. See, that's one of the things is we as a Discouraged, we've traveled all over North America, and we've traveled overseas. We've traveled all over. We've spoken to people in communities all over the world. And even though there was a blackout, we could still get the word out because we had contacts. We have always had contacts. We've always had a big network. And so there's no way that they could keep this out of the minds of the people because we were getting the word out there. And we are able to do that because the thing is, North America is not such a big place. It's not like back in the old days where you had to go by canoe and by moccasin. Today there were telephones, and we knew how to get the word out. We had phone trees. We knew who was going to call who, when they were going to call them, and so on and so forth. And so we have all this in place. And today everybody just uses Facebook. Even though some guys like me, we're still not on Facebook. Because we're still the old way, we'll pick up a telephone, and that's what we're used to. People talk to me about Zooming and FaceTiming and, and Googling. And I know all the expressions because I heard it a million times because people nag me, but I say,
and here you are on my podcast.
Well, I'm on my phone.
Oh,
I
there you
don't
go.
know.
There you go. Well, and
Yeah.
also, it
Yeah.
wasn't just about our network. I mean, clearly the words were getting out to other countries, and the amount of support that we
Yes.
were actually getting from some of the European countries. I remember the Italian Parliament in particular. There were, I mean,
Yeah.
there were nations that were really shining a bright light on the atrocities that Canada was committing, and as I recall, at the time that Canada was had gone from the SQ involved in Gunazadaga and Oka to the RCMP and then to their full blown military, they had committed more troops in their assault on the treatment center and
Then
Ganawage
they,
than they had
then they
than
did in
all of
Iraq.
Desert Storm, and all of Desert Storm, right.
Yeah.
So it was really a disproportionate sign of force, but our people still stood.
That's right.
So I
And
mean, the
that's right.
legacy
And the thing is,
that comes out of Oka was a huge. Um, Look, the thing is, when we talk about legacy, you got to go to thinking about the children, and I remember
that's
for
right.
years little kids whose favorite clothing were camo fatigues and was a bandana, and little kids they literally wanted barbed wire to play with because they wanted to string it up like Constantine wire that they saw on television. I mean, it was bizarre. Only Native kids were playing this way. Nobody else was playing this way. So
Yeah.
the legacy was that's what was being ingrained. So when we fast forward to today, we know that whether it's a blockade in Tyndanega or whether it's in Wet'suwet'en territory, or whether it's standing up for fishing rights with the Mi'kmaq, we know that many of these things still have the image of not just Oka, not just Ganazadage, but the Warrior Society. So we know that the
Yeah.
legacy has been positive.
Yeah. Yes. And something today, I mean, today, there's a lot of people who, are taking what we have struggled for, and they kind of like prostituting it today. Yeah. They're all dressed in regalia and dancing and singing and everything else. But when it comes time to stand for your people, you don't see those people. All they're out there dancing for is the dollar, and stuff like that. And the thing is that we better get real. With so many things happening in this world, and happening to us right here today, and even this COVID whole thing and that. Our people, because since I was a little boy, I remember the old people saying, the days are going to be coming when it's going to be important to be able to raise your own food. It's going to be important, again, to start to hold yourself, carry yourself, and that. And we got to get back to the land. We got to work with the land. We got to get to understand the creation again. We got to be one with the creation, because that's what Ungwe means. Ungwe is the people. Ungwe is the forever. And what is the forever but creation itself? And so that's what we have to be. We have to be one with that creation. And I'm not saying let's wear breechcloths and run to the bushes with a hunting knife. No. But I'm saying let's have respect for all of our relations, because we don't have only human relations. The earth is our relation. She's our mother. Our grandfathers, the four winds, the thunders, and our brother, the sun, our grandmother, the moon, all our brothers and sisters who roam this land with us, our cousins, the waters, our cousins, the distant stars. We have to be one with them. And we have to start to be able to look to them, because they're the only guarantee of life. Everything else is a smoking mirror.
Well, and I think it's
we
also
get back to that.
It's also important to realize that to the extent that Native people, through band councils and elected councils, have become dependent on the U.S. or Canadian rule of law, or on on funding and various things, funding their tribal councils and their band councils. It's really important that people realize that things are not looking really bright for the United States or Canada. That there are major problems. And look, as you look at the globe and you see what capitalism has done. So you see some of the economic failures. You see global conflicts. You see local conflicts. A lot of these race oriented conflicts that are taking place. Climate change and all these other things. We need to understand that the very systems of organization that you guys put in place at the very beginning, much of that is gone. And you're right. When you talk about prostitution of some of the things that we fought for, look, we know that we have successful businesses in our territory, but how many of them are pitching in the way that the structures that you put in place and creating funding mechanisms to advance our people? A lot of that stuff has gone away. I'm not saying it's all. Look, I do my program right here is funded by literally by three organizations and whatever a few individuals do, but we don't have the economic strength that we had. And I'm not saying that economic strength has to be tied to dollars and cents or selling cigarettes or anything else, but it does have to somehow get back to being sustainable and self-sustainable.
Yeah, self-reliance.
Yep.
It's self-reliance, taking responsibility. Because if you know our language, if you know our ways, it's all about being responsible. Because the thing is, you have the freedom to make choices, but you need to understand is whatever choice you make, you got to take responsibility for. Because for every action, there's a reaction. And you have to understand these things. And it's not always what we want, it's what we need. That's what we need to understand. We got to work for what we need as a people. And that what our children are going to need, what our grandchildren are going to need. We're not going to be here forever. Mm-hmm. And that somebody 1,000 years ago was looking out for us. Well, we have a responsibility to look out for the ones 1,000 years from now.
Paul, in the time,
stop being selfish.
In the time that we have left, I'd like you to touch on at least two things. One is, how hopeful are you with some of what you're seeing with some of the young people, and what is your message to them?
I'm very encouraged. The young people I'm meeting. I'm running into so many of them who today I'm so proud of them. They're walking on this earth only using the Ungwahunga name, which was a great start. And a lot of them are now are conversing in our language, our words. And a lot of them are talking about how they want to break out of that reservation mentality, and they want to start to reestablish new communities based on our philosophies, our principles, our constitution as Ungwahunga people. And I see already different places, and I visit, and they're doing it already. And I'm working with many young people from many different territories right now, and that we want to get back to living our own lives. We want a life that is not tied to the Indian Affairs or the BIA or to the state or the provinces or the federal governments. But we want to raise our own foods. We want to build our own homes. We don't need mansions. All we need is shelters.
You are hopeful that there are people in each community that are young people that are moving in the right direction. And I know one of the things that I say all the time, and I'd like you to kind of expand on is that those of us that are our age, in our 60s and our 70s, we need to do everything we can to empower these young people to do the things that we didn't get to, and that perhaps we weren't equipped to do. You talked about us not understanding the language and the ways of white men back in the 50s. Well, we understand it pretty well right now, but too many of our people are, as they grew to understand it, bought into those systems. So I think we need to empower our people to do. To take our resistance to the next level, and I see some of it, but give me your thoughts on that as we close.
Yeah, well, John, all I'll say is that I am very hopeful for the future. One of the things, I'm not a young man no more. I don't have that same spunk like I did when I was my teens to my 50s even. But one of the things is I learned a lot of things. I've known a lot of old timers, I have my language, and I've learned to speak English. And I put on the tapes, like people videotape all these things with all these new contraptions. And it's all over on the internet, constantly talking about our wage and our responsibilities. And I can't visit every place anymore, but the tapes are circulating, and they're going all over the world. People are listening to this. I'm getting calls from all kinds of people, and that wanting to talk to me. But some people think I got a magic bullet. I don't have a magic bullet for everything, you know. The thing is that I can share my knowledge. I can share my experiences. I can tell them what I've heard, and that I don't tell them everything I know is right. But the thing is, at least I got this experience, and I pass it on. But I encourage people always think about what I tell you, because, like my grandmother told me, I could be wrong. That's why creation gave you a brain, for you to think. But I encourage you to really use that brain and not have somebody else's baloney, gossip, and rumors influence your mind. Use your own eyes, use your own ears, use your own mind, and dissect all matters. Don't assume. Assuming is what's hurting us. We cannot assume. The thing is, we have to know. We have to know what's real, not what's imaginary. That's what's hurting us. And the thing is, many of our people have become so comfortable in letting somebody else do their thinking for them. It's about time I encourage our young people, use your mind and think, because creation gave you the ability to do that.
And
that's called a human right.
And the right to do it, exactly. Deg, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to having you come back. We'll take on a couple of other topics as we move forward. But I think giving this background on what the Warrior Society was, what it is, and offering some insight to the future. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you joining me for the program.
I just like to say to the people, when I talk, I'm loud and it's like I'm yelling, but it's not really. I'm not yelling at people. It's that I believe so strongly. I'm so passionate about who we are and what we're about and what we're supposed to be doing. That's why I'm the way I am. I guess I'm over hyper or something, but I'm not scolding the people. I care. I love my people. I love creation, and I want to see things get good. But I can't make it good for you. You have to make it. You and all the rest of us have to pull together, and we have to do this together. That's why they always said, take 5 arrows. Nobody can break 5 arrows bound together.
Right. Yep.
So I thank you all for listening. Yawakoa.
All right. Hey, okay, folks. That's Tekarontake, my friend. You may know him as Paul Delaronde. If you, I do encourage you. You can look online. You can look on YouTube. Search his name, Paul Delaronde. You'll find several videos. Some of them involving this show. But by all means, check out some of the work that he's done, and we'll have him come back. I want to thank you for listening. This is John Kane with my friend Tekarontake, and this is Let's Talk Native. Yahweh.